Good morning, campers. In today's episode we're going to be rebuilding the engine. Like I said, we've been shopping, we've got some goodies, so we ordered them Sunday and they came today, which is Tuesday morning, so a massive shout out to Brickworks. Not sponsored at all, just props to them getting here like pretty early. Some shiny push rod tubes. These ones are straight, that's a bonus. Fuel pump. Heater duct. Another heater duct. Engine gasket kit. Oil cooler. Engine tin. Back door seal. Front door seal. Little end bearing. Big end bearing. Heat control box. Engine mount 1, 2, 3, and 4. No pistons. Brand new barrels and pistons. Practically eat your dinner off there. Yeah, we'll keep them safe. Always remember, safety first. We'll just show people you want. The crank's rebuilt. We've changed the bearings. We have to use a puller to get these gears off. Do not apply heat to the crank at all. There's oil in the galleries and it will carbon up and just distort the crank. Do not apply heat at all to it. You can apply heat to the gear to get it back on as long as it's nowhere near the crank, because you can distort the crank and it'll cause you an absolute world of pain. So these are the old bearings compared to the new bearings. As you can see, the coating's gone off these ones. Looks like we caught it just in time, so it didn't scrap the crank. All we're doing here is bolting the con rod to the crankshaft. So officially these are the first new parts of the engine, because these weren't retaining anything. So when you're putting the engine back together, if you don't see a gasket or sealant, don't put a gasket or sealant back on it. Reason being, if you do put any sealant or gasket in here, it will increase the size of the bearing carrier, which will in turn scrap your engine. So when you put the cam in, you just want to feel for a nice smooth. So you don't want it to stop or bind. You don't want to hear no clunks or cracks. All I'm doing is just clean the machine face, not sanding it, just cleaning it. Whilst you're cleaning it as well, make sure you're getting no bits down the oil galleries. Because obviously you don't want bits in your oil. In go the dowels, nice and shiny. Somebody lost them.
Guess I lost them. Well, I can't have lost them. I don't actually know where they went.
Because they disappeared.
They've all literally disappeared into thin air.
So on your half main, you'll see a hole and a seat, if you will. So that's where your dowel goes in, and that's where your oil gallery joins up. He says. When you rebuild the engine, don't be scared to look in the book or see if you can get one on the internet. I mean, a Heinz manual on the internet, a digital version. In this section, we're going to be putting the crankshaft in position and making sure that the con rods are the right way around. In the next section, we're going to be putting oil on the bearings, making sure that they get through the galleries so that the crank doesn't bind when we turn the engine over. In this clip, we're putting the camshaft in and getting the timing right. Remember, it's 1 dot on the cam and 2 dots on the crank.
That's good. No, no. That's okay. That's not the way in. That's not the way. That's okay. So let's have a go. See if we got that. Well, where's it up? Is it back and forwards? Where's it up? Which way is the pod now? I don't keep pressure keeping forwards, just hold on to there. Let's drop on the other. That's good. There you go. There.
As you can see, we're putting the two halves of the engine together, making sure that the oil strainer is at the bottom of the engine, so that the loop for the oil strainer doesn't get caught when you're trying to bolt the two halves together. So, just in case you're wondering for the torque specs on the crankcase halves, your M8 nuts are 20 Newton meters, M10 nuts 30, M12s 35s. You can't see it. There's a barrel and piston, 1 down, 3 to go. So, when we ordered this barrel and piston, the piston came pre-fitted inside the barrel. So we've lubed up with oil the piston skirt and the inside of the barrel. The worst thing that's going to happen when you start the engine, if you've got too much oil in the top of the barrel, is just going to burn it off, and that's it. If you don't have any in, it might scrap the engine. Same on the other side. If you put too much in, it don't matter, it's in the inside of the engine anyway. If you don't put any in, it might scrap it.
2, 3, 4. That's 4 of them.
When you're putting the pistons back in, there's a little arrow you'll see on the piston. You can't really see it on the camera, but it faces towards the flywheel. With the head back on, got the nuts back on, and then we're going to torque them back down again. The torque spec for the nuts is 30 Newton meters. Like I said before, when you're taking it out, working out. Same way when you're putting it back in, circular motion, work your way outwards from in. Now with the head all torqued down, we can get the push rod tubes back in. Make sure when you're pushing the push rod tubes in, to dip them in oil first, or at least get oil on the seals. When you're getting the push rod tubes in, you might struggle to get them to seat properly. So, you get a 3/8 socket on the end of a bit of an extension bar, put it inside the push rod tube, and gently knock it with a rubber hammer, not a big hammer like Clarkson would. All done. So, now we've got the push rod tubes in, put the push rods in. Now, the reason why I was stressing about lubing the rubbers on the push rod tubes is because otherwise you're liable to split them. Massive pain. So now we've got the push rod tubes in, we can now get the retaining spring in and the rocker gears in. Now, when we come to consult the Haynes manual to see how the retaining wire went in, it shows it just being in place and then installing the rocker gear after. That was getting a bit fiddly, so what we done was rest the rockers in first. So just get them in resting, no nuts or nothing. Slot the retaining clip in, which goes in here, and then obviously holds the tubes in place, and then put your nuts on, tighten your rockers down. Now with the rockers on and the nuts back on, it's time to torque the nuts down. If you can't find the torque setting for the rocker nuts, on the 1.6 engine it's 25 Newton meters. On the 2 litre, like ours, it's 15 Newton meters. Whilst we were putting the head on, the person who keeps taking all of our money, i.e. the parts man, turned up with our air-cooled oil. So this is where we're going to be leaving the rebuild for today. That's going to do it for today's episode then, guys. We'll see you next episode when we put the engine back in the van. Ta-da!